split it and built it up into more and more subsystems and subtasks. So the division that that you see in a structure diagram, like it starts from the top and goes till the bottom, and that is used to produce a structure diagram and represents the modular construction of the system where you have all of your subsystems. So this concept is known as a top-down design, because in a top-down design, you can see that you have your modules and submodules, and that is an example of a decomposition. Module is known as a one simple part of your structure diagram like this. This is alarm app. So it is broken down into modules. These are the modules: set alarm, check alarm, sound alarm, and then they are also broken down into more and more submodules. That means that the system and the subsystem. So top down is the word given to it, and we call it as a decomposition because this is an effective way of designing a computer system to provide a solution to a problem. How is that possible? Because here, then you work on to each part of your problem individually and broke it down into more manageable tasks, and then you program them and then connect them together. So if sub-modules are broken, what will they be called, or will they be sub-modules? It's like modules, and when they are broken down, they are going to be known as sub-modules. This is a very known as a very structured approach, like for the development of your computer systems. Then if you have a question into your exam that refers to like how can you decompose a problem? So there are four stages of decomposition. Like the first stage is the input. Like if there is a question that you want to decompose a problem and what are the four stages or what are the four components that you are going to write, that if you want to decompose a problem or a problem that uses a computer system, so you work with the input of that, the input so that the data that is used by the system needs to be entered while the system is active. Input means you can check with the data of your computer system that needs to be entered. Then with the second part, it asks for the process. That means that the tasks that needed to be performed using the input data and any of the previously stored data. Then you have the output as well. Output is used for the information that needs to be displayed or printed for the user of the system. And then what you have is you have the storage. Storage is like what data is going to be stored. So if you are decomposing a problem, so you should work with four stages, that is input, process, output, storage. Then we discussed this part and we also completed a question based on that. Structure diagrams, like they are used as a top-down design. They are hierarchical in order, which means they are divided and subdivided into stages. Then we have the flow chart. The flow chart is basically the diagrammatical representation or the graphical representation if you require to complete a task and if you want to show it to your user that how the steps are going to be performed. So these steps together are in an order that are known as an algorithm. So flowchart is basically an effective way, and structure charts as well, because whenever you are going to show someone the flow charts or structure charts, the point is that since they provide you the graphical demonstration, so it's really easy to convey what you are basically looking for. So if you want to create a flow chart, here are the instruction steps that you can draw into your notebook after your class. So first of all, if you want to start or stop the flow chart, you can use this option that says that begin and start and stop. Start and stop the flowchart symbols that are used at the beginning of each one. Then this is for the process part. Like the process part is used to show you actions. Like for example, when the values are being assigned to the variables. So start and stop is shape is like this. Like it has rounded corners all around for start and stop. And for the process part, it has a rectangle, right? Like this. These are the process flowcharts that are used to show actions to the variables. And sir, can you explain the sort list function? Where is it? This is not a like this is not a code or a program. It's just the symbol that means that this process is defined somewhere else. So if you are using a rectangle, it means that you are representing a process, and if you want to call a pseudocode, a program, and from earlier your program. So you are going to create a shape like this, the symbol like this, and you are going to write the name of the process that is stored at the earlier part of your program. So if you are going to write sort list, that means that this process, which is defined somewhere else in your program, can be retrieved or can be called back. Then if you want to add any value or if you want to generate an output of any value, so you will be using this parallelogram. So this basically means an input and this means an output. Then we have the decision making flowchart symbol as well that is used to decide which actions are to be taken next. So they can be used for your selection and they can be used for your repetition as well. This is the decision one. So right here, this is an example of a flowchart. Let me show you. You also have flowchart lines as well to show you the direction of the flow, like at which side they are moving. So right here, this is example number 4 of concert ticket sales. Tickets are sold for a concert at $20 each. If each tickets are bought, then the discount is 10%. If 20 tickets are bought, then the discount is 20%. No more than 25 tickets can be bought in a single transaction. The flowchart shows an algorithm showing to calculate the cost. So you can see that the flowchart started with the start button. It's ended with the stop button, like it has rounded corners. Then if you want to generate an input and output, you use this shape, like it outputs you how many tickets would you like to buy. Since it is an output, so we will be using this shape and input n. N is a variable that they have taken here. What is a variable? Variables are like the placeholder values which you can enter the value. Like for example, if I'm creating a program to calculate the student's age, I can give a variable such as age. So every number that I take in terms of age is going to be entered in this variable. So if whatever the value you enter here, they checks that if the value is greater than is equals to 1 and if the value is less than equals to 26, like this. If this is the case, then it checks for this condition. If yes or no, then it checks for this condition. So that's how it is working. This is the decision making one. If that's the case, it goes to the yes part. If this is not the case, it goes to no part. And so on. It calculates your cost. So we will do a sample question for flowchart. Don't worry. I'm just explaining you the concept. After that, we have pseudocode. So pseudocode is basically not an algorithm. Sir, why do we use 0.1 instead of 10? I think when you are going to multiply and calculate the result, so you cannot write 10%. So it's mostly like 0.1 as per the mathematical concepts. Like when you are going to convert the percentage into number for multiplying, so it is going to be 0.1 because you cannot write here 10%. Now I'm here on the pseudocode part. So what is pseudocode? Pseudocode is basically a very simple method of showing an algorithm. Like pseudocode is not an algorithm because if you have an algorithm, then you need to show how to execute it and run it on your computer. But this is not an algorithm because it is just a simple way to show that how your algorithm will work. It describes what the algorithm will do by using simple English keywords that are similar to those in high-level programming language. And since they are very similar English keywords, so it makes it understandable by all people who works with a high-level programming language because you are not having any complex structure and all the English keywords that are being used, they are being easily understandable to understand the operation. Sir, why is pseudocode spelled with P? Is there a reason? Oh, this is a very interesting question. I think that the pseudocode starts with P because it mostly comes from the Greek word and its origin is generated from a Greek word that is pseudo. Pseudo is basically a Greek word which means false or imitation. So it's like when we combine them, so it is translated into a false code. Pseudocode starts with P because it is generated from the Greek word pseudo, which means false or code. So it's more likely a false code. If I talk in terms of in Greek, which stands for pseudo. Pseudocode is not a programming code, but it's simplified way to describe an algorithm using plain language and programming like structures. So it's like designed to focus on the logic, not on the syntax of the programming language. So this is why you have P that represents the pseudo part that emphasizes that even if it is not a real code, but it is a tool that is used to plan and communicate your coding skills. So in terms of a pseudocode, you have data items as well that have to be processed by the algorithm. They are given a meaningful name and in a meaningful way. Data items can be processed and they provide you with the variables and constants in a high level language. So what are variables and constants now? When you will be working with a pseudocode, you need to use some variables. Variables are like placeholders, like we do it in the maths as well. Like for example, X is the value of this, Y is the value of this, right? So what is X and Y? These are variables because they are basically your value containers. Whereas constants are considered, so constants are those values that never change throughout your program. They remain the same. So for example, of a constant, I can say that 1 day is equals to 24 hours and 1 year is equals to 365 days. So this is an example of a constants that are used in a high level programming language. However, pseudocode is not bound by the strict rules of a programming language. Like if you want to ensure your pseudocode is easily understandable, so you should make sure that you use correct identifiers in terms of variables and constants. You are using a non-proportional for fonts throughout. You have all keywords specified, and one thing is that if you want to describe an action like input and outputs, or if you are writing the loop, so make sure that you write it in capital letters. You make sure that they are properly indented. All names given to data items should be starting with a capital letter. Like if it is an age and variable, so it should be starting with a capital A. Other than that, if you have any loops or statements, so they should be properly indented. So these are the basic rules for a pseudocode. In pseudocode, you also have an assignment statement or assignment operator. So this arrow is known as an assignment operator. So this operator is going to be used if you want to assign some values to maybe a variable. So for example, as we can see right here that these are the example of pseudocode assignment statements. So you can see that this arrow, like this is the value of 10 that is being assigned to your cost. Now it says that the price has the value of 20. How is this possible? It says cost multiplied by 2. So the cost value is 10 and 10 divided by 2 is 20. That means the value of 20 is assigned to your price. Then we have the tax, which means price multiplied by 0.12, and selling price plus tax, gender is am, chosen is false. So these are the pseudocode assignment statements. All right, so till here, are you guys clear for the pseudocode? Like, do you have any confusions? Is the basics clear to you?
और आप वापस उस टेबल पे जा सकते हैं।
Hmm.
अब वापस ऊपर वाली टेबल पे जा सकते हैं।
I cannot hear you properly. Sir, can you go back to the table? Oh, this one? Oh, these are just simple operators that you will be using. Last one, group. Oh, this one. This is a simple brackets. If you want to group your statements, so you can differentiate them with these brackets. All right, so now we are done with the basic concept. Now it's like the basic implementation for the pseudocode part. So if you want to learn the pseudocode, first of all, you need to learn about the conditional statements. So can you define me what are conditions or condition statements in one line? Rules or protocols, see, conditions are basically when you are provided with the two options, like either to work with it true or either to not work with it, which is false. So whenever you are provided with a condition, that means that you have two options like either true or either false. So if you are taking my class right here as well, that means you have uh, two options, right? Like either if you want to take the class or either if you do not want to take the class, right? So you have two options. The same is the case with the conditional statements in the pseudocode as well, that when you are implementing the pseudocode, sir, if we want a specific numbers to identify them, uh, can you explain your question? A specific number as in what? You want more conditions? I didn't get it. Specific number like as in what? I mean, like one number, what you want to specify, like for example, if 15, right? So yes, so if 15, you can also create it in the pseudocode, like if your number is greater than or less than or is equals to 15, then you can output true, else you can output false. This can also be the case, but can we apply two conditions at the same time? But how it's going to be possible, and two conditions at the same time? You can take the class or you cannot take the class. There's only going to be one condition. There's only going to be one condition at one time, either if you want to do it or either if you do not want to do it. If you want to filter out your condition, then it's totally up to you. I mean, if here we want to test if the number is greater than 18 and lower than 20, can we test both conditions? Yes, yes, yes. We can do it all together. I will show you the way how you can write it. So the pseudocode for conditional statements is that when you have different variables and when you have different conditions and if you want to perform them, so we use conditional statements. Now, if you want to work with similar type of examples which both of you give me, like if you want to test that if the number is 15 or not, or as Shayan said that if he wants to test that if the number is greater than 18 or lower than 20. So if we want to test that now, if you want to work on the conditional statements, you need to remember two loops. The first loop is if, then else, and if, and then the second loop is case of otherwise and case. So these are the two loops that are used in your conditional statements. That means that whenever you have a condition, you will be using these two loops. Now, I can say that 80% of your paper is you can do it with the if, then, else, and if. Now, what is the important thing to discuss here, that you can see that this is the loop if, then, else, and if. You can also see that the loop is only written in the capital words, so it has to be capital. The variable first letter is also capital. The space is properly given. If age, then it says right here output with the given space, then it says child. Else, it's you can see that they are properly idented. Idented means that there is some space behind them, and they are in a order. So if you write them straight without any space, this is going to be incorrect. So you need to give space like this. You can see if, then, output, else, output, and then and if. Are you getting it? What is the purpose of and if here? And if is used to terminate or end your program. So if you're using an if else statement, so you use and if to end it. Like and if is used to mark the end of a statement. And if and case, yes, they are same, but the loop is different. If you're using the if then else statement, then you need to use the and if, but for the case, I'm going to come into it. So make sure that you write in the same way the conditional statements, and then for the second part, this is for the case one. So now the case one is like when you are given several cases, case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if you will be doing it with an if then else and if, so it is going to create problems. Like you need to create it, you need to write it again and again. If this is the case, then this. If this is the case, then this. So instead of that, you just simply work with the case. So what happens with the case is that you enter case of anything, like right here it says case of grade, and then you can simply write all of the cases that are mentioned, like such as case of A, case of B, case of C, otherwise this. So you can write all of them without the need to use if, then, else, and if. So these are the two examples. Like you can see that this is the example for your true and false. Like if the item you have found is true, for defining, we will do that later on. For now, we are just working on how the pseudocode statements will work. Like right here in this example, it says that if found, then you will output your search was successful. If not, then you will output your search was unsuccessful. And then I have the similar question as Shayan said, that if you want to test multiple conditions, so here is it. Like it says that if your height is greater than 1 or your weight is greater than 20 and age is greater than 70 and age is greater than 5. So here you can see that we have and or. So we will be using and or, like they are the logical expressions. So basically for the and operator, let me send it on the WhatsApp, like how it works. And operator basically combines two or more conditions and return true if your conditions are true. And when it comes to an or you returns true if at least one of the condition is true, so that you can see the differences between them. All right, so do you have any problems till now? Now, I am giving both of you some sample questions that you need to try by looking at this code. So you need to take a paper or anything, just make sure that you do not type, you write. The reason is that because in your exam, you will not be asked to type. So I need to see that how are you writing them? Are you even writing them properly or not? So